Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Bright Now Podcast, a place for Phoenix Suns to get some good commentary on the team and about the league as a whole. I am the Shaq of this two-man show, and we have the Kobe Bryant, TJ, out here blessing us with some Trail 3 energy and a quick turnaround for another podcast, as we do have the regular season sneaking up on us this Tuesday, the 24th. Before we get to talking about opening day, what are we jawing about on today's episode, TJ?
Well, first, I think if I'm the Kobe, I think that just means I'm a harder worker than you.
Hey,
I mean, I feel like you might need to hit the gym a little bit. I don't know. I'm a little concerned there.
Eating good, baby.
Like you said, we got the game one coming up. I mean, in the blink of an eye, it feels like. We've mentioned on our inaugural episode what matchups we were most looking forward to, and this was, number one on my list. So I think just wanting to kick off today's show, kind of doing a deep dive, maybe not quite a deep dive, but going over what we expect from that opening night game with the Suns versus the Golden State Warriors, and then leading into how we think the East and West standings are going to shake up the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put, and let's not bullshit around. This first game of the season, and just being NBA fans as a whole, thank God the season is already here. I mean, like you said, it did feel like a blink of an eye that we've already gotten here, but there were some dog days there where we were kind of scrambling for things to talk about, things to listen to. Tons of James Harden talk. Do you remember the Dame? Oh my God, the Damian Lillard takes were fucking ridiculous.
I think that was 10 years long. I think that was 10 years of us talking about Damian Lillard getting traded.
It's crazy. I remember the dog day months of just literally saying, like, just tell me when the trade actually happens. That shit was ridiculous. But start us off with the Warriors versus Suns. The first thing that comes to mind, I think, for most people, I mean, this is a Suns podcast, but who the fuck is starting on the Golden State Warriors, TJ?
Yeah, so I dove into a little bit of their preseason starting lineups to get a feel for how they're going to run out this squad. My best guess is that they are going to start Chris Paul to start the season at least, and who knows if that's going to last much longer. We've all had the questions about, can you have Steph and Chris Paul in the same backcourt? Like, is that just going to work in the modern NBA? But looking at it just top to bottom, I think they're going to go CP at the 1, Steph at the 2, whatever you want to call it, whatever that means anymore anyway. Clay at the 3, Andrew Wiggins at the 4, and Draymond at the 5. I think that I would imagine Kevon Looney gets pushed to the bench in place of the veteran Chris Paul. Who knows? Last night in the Kings game, Chris Paul did close that game with Steph hitting that game winner, but it's definitely going to be weird to see just how that lineup all works. That's a pretty small lineup across the board. I mean, their tallest guy in that lineup is going to be 6'7" with Andrew Wiggins. So they're 6'2", 6 foot, 6'6", 6'7", 6'6".
Who's 6'6"? Draymond?
Draymond.
That motherfucker's 6'4". Stop. I'm the biggest Draymond stan in the world, and you will not hear me calling him 6'6".
Old Charles Barkley head ass. Shout out to Charles. Shout out to Sir Charles, man. The round man and rebound. What really we know who the Suns are going to roll out there. Kobe looks like he's going to be the 5th starter. So as far as matchups go, who's guarding who, do you think?
So definitely looking over that, it feels weird. I mean, I initially off the top of the dome, I do think that Chris Paul guarding Bradley Beal might be, for this first opening game, I could see CP3 exerting a lot of his energy and taking this game personal. I mean, you motherfuckers traded me for Bradley Beal. Let me show you. Even though I'm 19 years into this shit, I'm ready to dog him down. So I just don't know how that matchup's actually going to go. Curry on Booker, I'm more than fine with. Just off top, I think Devin Booker is going to do the best that anybody in the league could possibly do guarding Steph Curry. And who's to say that's not a ton of switching that we're going to be seeing? Josh Okogie switching on him. I do think that Stephen Curry, as much as he has became a plus defender in the league, I just don't see him stopping Devin Booker at all. I mean, he's just bigger and stronger. Unfortunately, he has fortunately for us, but unfortunate for Steph Curry, there's no way in hell I see him even slowing down Devin Booker. With Booker though, if we can't put Steph there, are they looking at Clay? I mean, we saw the quote unquote beef. It seems like it's been solved. I mean, that shit got pushed to PG and Booker already at this point.
Yeah, PG's fault for sure.
PG's fault. That's what I'm saying. And so with Clay guarding Devin Booker, I also just, the decline in athleticism from Clay is just not going to be there. And what are you going to do? Play Andrew Wiggins? That's what I'm saying. Right? Are you going to play Andrew Wiggins on Devin Booker? Because if you do, there's this guy, Kevin Durant. He's pretty good.
Ever heard of him? Ever heard of him? Kevin Durant? Steve Kerr. Do you know who this guy is?
Do you know who he is? And as much as Nurkic isn't a guy that's going to create his own shot, or they're going to have Draymond there, and it is 7-inch difference at least. So, I mean, I would like to hope that there would be some type of abuse that we could see there, maybe on the switches, on the rolls, that we can find Nurkic. Like we said, we're not asking for Nurkic to create any of his own shots, but if we're setting pick and rolls and Steph gets switched onto him, if Clay gets switched onto him, if CP3 gets switched onto him, I want Nurkic to go straight up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think my thoughts on how the Suns match up against the Warriors vary a little different from what you had laid out. I would expect that we actually start a Kogi on Steph, just given we saw him take on Cade Cunningham in that initial preseason game. He's going to have to be our best wing defender, and Steph Curry is going to be their best perimeter player. So that's where I would imagine things sliding, with Beal then guarding Chris Paul. That's a matchup that I'm very comfortable with. Book on Clay, I think that definitely makes sense. KD on Wiggins definitely falls in line. And then obviously Nurkic is going to be on Draymond or whoever they slide in at the 5. So it's definitely, I think we kind of have the edge as far as these matchups go. I know none of our guys are necessarily known as being, absolute stoppers, but we've all seen, like you said, Clay take a decline. Chris Paul, we saw firsthand his kind of defensive prowess decline over the years. Draymond is still, going to be a defensive player of the year candidate as long as he's in the league, it seems like. But you got to feel pretty comfortable about how we match up with these guys.
For sure. I wanted to ask you a question real quick off the top of the dome. Do you think Andrew Wiggins is going to have any type of success in the sense how Aaron Gordon did against Kevin Durant? I mean, I know Aaron Gordon's just a little bit taller, a little bit, stronger, but Wiggins has proven to be an excellent defender, especially on guys that are taller than him. He's athletic as fuck. I mean, Maple Jordan was the name before, he turned into a star.
I can't lie. I bought into all that hype too. I thought
I know you did.
It was a real thing. Hey, he's a champion now. He's a champion. So
he's an NBA champion. And do you think he'll have any success on KD, or do you think that just like 99.9% of the league is going to be barbecue chicken forever is guarding Kevin Durant?
Guarding KD is pretty impossible. He's going to get his shots where he wants. He doesn't really let the defense dictate what he wants to do. It's just him reading and reacting. I mean, he has a counter for everything. You play up on him this way, he's going to go that way, and vice versa. So I don't necessarily view Wiggins as a KD stopper. Obviously, there's going to be possessions where he might give him fits or really be a good contest, because like Wiggins is super long and athletic. But I feel like Kevin Durant has more so typically had trouble in his career with the smaller, stockier defenders, like the PJ Tuckers of the world, the Draymonds of the world, if you will. So I think that's where his most problems will come from. So I can't say I'm worried about Wiggins matching up on KD. If anything, I'm a little bit more worried about how KD is going to guard Wiggins, just because he's going to be flying around and moving so much, and we don't necessarily want to put that wear and tear on Kevin Durant. But it's game one. You have to guard somebody on the court, and I can live with these matchups.
For sure. And if you could remind us all in the preseason, did you feel like Frank Vogel was running a lot of like switching coverage? And if so, was it? Do you think we're going to do well on the switches with this Warriors team, or do you think that small ball is going to kill us with Nurkic being on that defensive end?
So I think most of our guys are athletes, like the 1 through 4 can switch to wherever. If we get Nurkic out on Steph on a pick and roll, obviously, like we know the result there, right?
To give him possession, yes.
Exactly. But I think in the modern NBA, especially when it comes to the regular season, they're going to switch everything. That's just the best way to actually guard people, because as soon as you try to hedge and recover, these guys are too fast, too quick at making those like split second decisions, to where you'll get punished more often than not than if you just take the switch and kind of live to fight another day. But it has to be something that can get a little frustrating with just defense in basketball as a whole, is when the coaches are saying, hey, we're switching everything tonight. But when the defense doesn't force you to switch, you shouldn't. There's sometimes where if it's kind of a soft screen, whether it's away from the ball or on the ball, where the guy's not making like good contact, you don't need to switch those. And that's something like a trap that I feel like a lot of teams, like at all levels, where you're talking junior high to the NBA, right? Where make the offense force the switch rather than just taking it as a given. And that's one way that I think we can combat it. But Frank Vogel, these guys should be up and ready for this game. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the Suns, they're negative and positive. So I think they should feel like they have something to prove this year. Overall, though, I do think that there's kind of some, in a sense, that this Warriors team and this Suns team are going to play kind of similarly. They're both going to be running and gunning, shooting a lot of jump shots. I wouldn't be surprised if this sets some sort of record for most jump shots taken in a single game. I don't know what that record is or if anybody even keeps track of something like that, but that definitely seems like it's in the realm of possibility. It just feels like the Suns are a little bit bigger version of what the Warriors are going to be trying to do, at least for this season.
So it sounds like off of your first couple takes right here, you got the Phoenix Suns edging out the Warriors in this game?
I have to. It's so hard. It's a long season. One game doesn't mean everything. But if we, gun to my head, somebody asked me who I'm rocking with in this game, it has to be with my Phoenix Suns.
All right, perfect. Well, I do want to keep on this game. There are a few narratives aspects that I do want to touch on. First of all, do you think CP3 is going to come out with an edge? I mean, let me rephrase the question. Under, over CP3, 16 points and 8 assists. Under, over.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So I think if we're talking on just the assist part, I can see that being very high. Like the Warriors are always near the top of the league in most assists. Last year, the Suns were third in assists with him leading the charge in that aspect. So I definitely want to say the over there. I don't know if he gets to 16 points. I don't know how many shots he's really going to get in this offense. So we'll see how that meshes together. So give me the over on the assists and that under on the points.
I like it. And then next narrative question that I did want you to hit on is, how do you think the crowd's going to react to KD? I feel like I don't have like a super good recent memory of crowd interaction with Kevin Durant. And just like you alluded to earlier, this is a very similar team and even slightly similar to those past successful teams with the Warriors. Ironic enough with Kevin Durant. I mean, you got all that firepower. They are a bit bigger, like you said. And those Warriors teams were extremely good defensively. I mean, top 10 in defense that year. I do think that we're going to have to be creeping in that area if we do want to have good success. But in terms of the reaction of the crowd and how they feel in the arena, do you think there's going to be some negativity towards Kevin Durant and this super team, the newly formed super team?
I think it'll be a lot. It'll be in the same. I don't have, like you said, I don't have a recollection of how the crowd at the Chase Center has treated him before, especially now since they moved out of Oakland. I feel like if they were still in Oakland, it might be a little bit more hostile just because that fan base is a little bit more like blue collar grassroots kind of fans. And now that they're up in San Francisco, you get a lot of like tech executives and stuff. Yeah. So I honestly think it'll be a lot more applause and love for Kevin Durant. I wouldn't be surprised if they run some sort of tribute video for sure. And the same thing when CP comes back to Phoenix, like there's no reason in hell that we should boo that man when he comes back to Phoenix. Yeah. It should be like a standing ovation for all he did for the Valley. Yeah. So that's what I would expect, but you know who knows if it gets to the fourth quarter and Kevin Durant's hot and the boos start coming in that fourth quarter every time he touches the ball.
I want that villain arc. I want all of it. I want the boos for Kevin Durant. I want him busting their ass. I want the tech executives to be pissed off with their nerdy asses. I'm excited. Last on the narrative section that I did want to touch on was we're seeing two guys that are absolutely generational. I mean, they've affected the way the league has been played. They're affecting how youth ball has been played. They're affecting how just archetypes in general, what they are. And that is Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, both 35 plus years old at this point. I want to pose a question. Who's higher in your all-time rankings, TJ?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think you could think about it a couple different ways. The first way that I'd want to touch on is who had the higher peak and who was just it felt like there were more years where Kevin Durant was rising up the ranks as far as like taking the crown from LeBron, or at least wrestling with LeBron for it. Felt for a long time, obviously LeBron was the best in the league and it was kind of Kevin Durant or Steph Curry, which way you went. But especially if you look at when they were on teams together, Kevin Durant was the one winning the finals MVPs. So I'm definitely taking Kevin Durant if I have one game, one basketball game, they got the death beam pointed at Earth. I'm going with Kevin Durant, right?
I see you, Max Kellerman.
But if you are looking at it from a historic lens, which I know that we both really appreciate in terms of looking at, because we value, some of the older players like the Bill Russells and Wilt Chamberlains differently than some younger fans do now, in terms of, hey, it's how good were you against your own competition, and less about just straight up skill on any one possession. Where I think with Steph, with the Finals MVP now, 2-time MVP, the only person to ever be a unanimous MVP, I think you have to give him the edge on an all-time ranking sheet, but I think they're right next to each other, right in like the 14, 15 range. I know there's a lot of buzz about Steph being top 10. I don't see anybody that's really getting bumped out for these guys at this point. But I mean, top 20 people, how many people have played? There's 450 players in the NBA every year. Like, people are going to say that we're disrespectful for something like that, but they're two of the best players to ever touch the basketball.
Yeah, but boo-hoo. I'm sorry that he's not fucking 9 and he's 14 instead.
Yeah,
I think, and just like how you're alluding to earlier, I think we do show a lot more respect to the older heads. But these guys are absolutely making themselves a case, and especially with Steph Curry. I mean, I have all the love in the world for Kevin Durant, and I do think he's got at least 2, maybe 3 just Kevin Durant years left in him, 3 of them. But Steph Curry's looking absolutely ageless. I mean, last year he had one of his best years, as we touched on in the last podcast, and these guys still have an opportunity to make themselves an even greater case. Maybe Steph Curry does get bumped up in that top 10. Maybe Kevin Durant does surpass Steph Curry, because I personally at this moment also have Steph Curry higher all time. I like to point back to, like you said, the accolades. I think the Finals MVP that year in 2017 and 2018.
I don't want to won it over Iguodala. He should have won it over Iguodala. Looking back, Iguodala felt right in the moment. I think for most fans, just because we knew how crazy LeBron was. Honestly, it should have gone to LeBron that year. It should have been a Jerry West situation.
Yeah.
But, you can't go back and change the vote now. So it's kind of a moot point.
I don't want to participate in revisionist history, just like you said, but Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, as you alluded to earlier, were number 2 and 3, and they just happened to play on the same team. And at points, Kevin Durant took those big dagger shots, whether it was a sweep at the end of the day, but he had those big momentum career altering shots over LeBron James that I think is all burned into our memory, back-to-back years in the same exact spot. And that
was insane. That was insane. I was so mad. I was so mad.
I was pissed as fuck too. It's like, no, they can't keep getting away with this shit.
Keep getting away with this. I do want to leave you with one point as we kind of finish up this KD versus Steph talk. So they've played against each other 26 times in their careers in the regular season. Kevin Durant leads 16-10 in terms of wins, and he's been averaging 30 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Steph in those 26 games has been averaging 25.5 while he's shooting 43.6% from 3. So these guys both bring it consistently when they play each other pre Golden State and post. So I think that's going to be an incredible matchup to watch. KD's gotten the edge in the last 2 games against Steph back when he was on the Nets last season. So that's just kind of one parting shot that I'd like to add. Who's scoring more points in this game?
I think I have to go with man. I think I'm going to have to go with Steph Curry just by a slight edge, just because he do have CP3, and I think they're going to be coming out like a bat out of hell. I think this last season with Jordan Poole there and everything, they're looking to make a statement to set the tone, and I honestly don't think either of these teams care too much about regular season, but I think this first game is a tone setter. I think this first game is personal on a lot of levels, and I do think that Devin Booker is the most, I'm taking this personal. All you guys have your own little narratives that you're going with. Fuck that. I'm coming out my narrative, trying to be a dark horse MVP candidate. I'm going to go out there and score the most points. And Kevin Durant's probably going to get his. He's probably going to get 29, 30, 31, 32. Not surprised. But I do think Steph Curry is going to have the help with CP3. I think that we already saw it in the preseason that there's going to be a lot of passing. And I'm very excited to see both of these teams. But it'll absolutely be close. One last thing before we get out of this section. I know we talked about it a little bit before we started recording. Do you think that Devin Booker has the skill set, the ability, the physical ability, the leadership role to be the Steph Curry to Kevin Durant as Steph Curry was to Kevin Durant?
Yeah, I think, it's tough to say anybody is as good as Steph Curry. Like we just said, he's a top 15, top 20 player to ever touch a basketball, and has had such a profound impact on the game. I think in terms of just offensive scoring ability, they both get it done very differently, but they do have the same kind of offensive firepower at the end of the day. Obviously, you give like a slight edge to Steph, just the pure volume of threes that he can hit.
Yeah.
I also think, in terms of just vibes, they are a little different as well. I think
Mhm.
Steph is definitely a lot more laid back. Like you used to see how they would warm up pregame back then, and they're throwing like football passes, running plays, like just messing
Yeah.
around. And I think Booker is a lot more serious about his craft in that way. Not that Steph's not serious about his craft, obviously, but Steph goes in like a lot more light, a lot lighter. When
Mhm.
Devin Booker is going to be a little bit more intense in the same way that KD is. So I think KD and Booker are cut from the same cloth, so it's a little different. But in terms of like skill wise, I think they can be the same like level of duo in this league.
Beautifully put. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about our seeding predictions for each conference. Which one should we do first?
You know what? Let's rock with this. Is the Suns podcast. Let's start with the West. Let's start with the West.
All right, TJ's going to lead us off after the break with who will be in what seed for the West. Coming up after this. Do you want to show off your Dr. J shirt real quick? That shit's kind of tough.
Shout out to Dr. J. 1976. You know the vibes. We're fans of history.
Real historians.
Hey, the original the original Michael Jordan.
And we're back. So TJ told me he's got maybe some spicier takes right here for the Western Conference seeding. Let's jump into this. No bullshitting. Who do you have? Oh, and actually a little bit of bullshitting. Should we start from the bottom or the top? Start with one? Okay, yeah. Hit us off then. Who is your number one seed? Who do you think cares enough to be number one?
So my number one seed, they won 53 games last season in the regular season. Their over-under is set at 53.5, which I'm taking the over on for this year. Not that I actually gamble, state of Georgia.
Yep.
Just, we're just talking here, guys. It's just a podcast. Come on, chill out. And that's the Denver Nuggets. I think they repeat as the one seed. When I sat down to make the list, I wanted to get a little spicier, especially with this first seed. But if you look at it, you got to give credit where credit's due. Even last season, when it felt like the Nuggets kind of mailed it in near the end of the season, as far as season is concerned, they still finished with the top record in the league, or in the West, excuse me. I think, Jokic is definitely on triple-double watch as far as this next year's concerned. He basically did it last year. By all accounts, he did it last year. 24.5 points, 12 rebounds, and 9.8 assists. Like, I know that it is nice to have the actual double digits and all these things, but he's definitely going to be on watch for that, which automatically puts him on MVP watch. Like not that that's a surprise. He's the best player on the planet. Last season, the Nuggets were 34-7 at home and they had a losing record on the road. They were 19-22. So they do have room to win, to increase that total, just a little bit better road performances. They definitely have a path to, I think, a 60-win season. I don't think that's ridiculous to say, especially with everybody's getting another year older, a little bit better. I know people are really freaking out about the loss of Bruce Brown, but hearing that, prepping for this, it took me back to an old Larry Bird quote back when he was the GM of the Pacers. He basically told all of his scouts or other front office executives to basically, we don't trade for people. We don't sign people that were teammates with LeBron James. He said something to the effect of, that guy makes everybody on his team so much better that we can't really trust who these guys are. And I think that Bruce Brown's getting a little bit of that treatment. But I do think we're going to see a big wave of kind of those mid to low tier stars taking cheaper contracts to go play with the Nuggets, just knowing that, hey, if I take a 1-year deal with them, Jokic is going to make me look fucking awesome. And then I'm going to get paid next summer in the same way that Bruce Brown did. We saw Aaron Gordon have a huge resurgence with him. Obviously, we know about Jamal Murray and him coming up together in the NBA. So they're my one seed.
Hell yeah. No, I absolutely, I understand. And quite frankly, that's who I had at my number one seed as well. Just like you talked about, Jokic makes everybody else around him better. I mean, not breaking news. Like you said, it's breaking news. Jokic is really good at basketball,
good at basketball.
You talked about the triple doubles, and that's not even mentioning the shooting percentages this guy had. I mean, he was shooting during the playoffs. He was shooting, I believe it was 66% from floaters that were, I think, was it 9 feet out? That is ridiculous. 2 out of every 3 shots going for those nasty ass doesn't even look skilled floaters, just flying in there, and it's just cash. And it's so demoralizing as a defense when you have somebody who looks so slow, somebody who's able to hit that 3 ball and to go by you with such slow feet. It doesn't matter. His brain is just, it's not even fathomable as to what he can do. And you are talking about the champions. I don't want to last on them too long, but they do deserve their flowers. I think Jamal Murray is going to be amazing. He's also not going to be coming off a knee injury this year, so I think that's huge. There's got to
be an all-star, right? If you're just kind of looking at predictions for the year, I think this is the year that he gets his
first seed, and you got to have multiple all-stars, and it's got to be Jamal Murray. I don't think Bill Simmons was kind of talking about on his podcast. I don't think that's a fluke. I really do think that's Jamal Murray. We saw it in the 2020 bubble, and we saw it again in the 2023 playoffs. And the last point I want to hit on with that, I think the 7 losses at home is fucking insane. I mean, I think that's kind of underrated. The GMs in that last poll that we kind of touched on previously, they also said that Denver Nuggets have the best home court advantage. So I think it's going to be awesome. There's going to be room to improve on the road, and I'm excited to see it. Who do you got at your number 2 spot, though?
I think this one might be a surprise for you. It was a little bit of a surprise for me, even as I was making this. They're a team that won 43 games last year, over-under sitting at 47.5.
Warriors?
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, no.
I have the Lakers as my 2 seed.
Hold on. Heads up. I'm pushing back on this, but go ahead.
I hear you. I totally get it. I totally understand. And I hate the Lakers more than anybody. So it's got nothing to do with any Lakers homerism or anything like that. I think Austin Reeves, especially after watching how he played in FIBA, I do think he's legit. I think he's going to be maybe the leading candidate for most improved player this year.
Ooh.
He averaged last season he shot 53% from the field, 39% from 3, and 86 from the free throw line. So right on the edge of that 50, 40, 90. It does come. LeBron is still averaging 27, 8, and 8 since he's been on the Lakers, which he's actually been on the Lakers now more years than he was on the Heat, which definitely feels very weird to me.
What the fuck?
They also had a really slow start last year to like the first half of the season until they were able to get off of Russell Westbrook. So I think that's was a big factor into them kind of limping into they got into the playoffs hard, but it kind of took some extra effort on that back half of the season. Anthony Davis is going to be 30 this year. If we're going to see the season where LeBron does finally take the back seat and is the second best player on the team, it's got to be this year. Always, it's going to, you're betting on health at that point. But, I have the Lakers as my 2 seed, man.
All right, so the first thing I want to touch on, and I do strongly agree with, is, and this is not white boy bias, but Austin Reeves is very, very good at basketball. I think I love the decision making that he has. I think he's got that kind of that grittiness to him that's like just real up in your jersey type on defense and not afraid to get a bucket on him. A good comparison I heard was to Manu Ginobili, and I thought that was kind of a good comparison just because the shiftiness and the ability to change directions and to make those mid-range shots. What would you say his 3-point percentage was? Was it almost in the 40% club?
A hair away from 40%.
Yeah, so I mean, uber efficient. Totally feel you there. I just cannot, and I know this is going to be like, Anthony Davis. I'm the leader of the Anthony Davis hating fan club. The day-to-day Davis, I invented that term.
I know, I'm with you. Every time he falls down, you're holding your breath for 7 to 10 games, right? But I didn't want to throw injuries too much into consideration here. We'll get back to that point in a few more teams from now. But I do think the Lakers have a path to be in the 2 seed. Also, part of it, didn't want to be too much of a Suns homer in terms of kind of evaluating where these standings are going to fall. But in the conference finals last year, wouldn't really make sense to me if they aren't, going to be near the top of the West.
Okay, no, I hear you. I'm kind of surprised. I thought you would have touched on Jared Vanderbilt a lot. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's really, really good, especially for what he's going to bring to that team and the spacing that he will be able to bring, and the lack of defense that LeBron James is going to bring. What the fuck else do you expect from a guy who's in his 21st season?
He picks his spots.
Picks his spots, and that's totally okay. But Jared Vanderbilt's going to be there along with Anthony Davis. I do think this team's going to be.
I think there's a D'Angelo Russell trade coming soon as well. The amount that his contract is worth kind of fits right into that range where it's going to be pretty tradable. So I could see them moving him for, I don't know. It seems like Buddy Hield is still available. So somebody like him, adding extra shooting, somebody that'll still get in you on defense. So I definitely got my eyes out for the Lakers this year. I don't love saying it. I wasn't happy writing it down, but that's my pick for the 2 seed this year.
Okay, I hear you. Well, we'll have a little bit of a debate once we get to the bottom of this list to see if you have any room to move. But at the number 3 spot, I hope it's a team I'm thinking of.
It's the Phoenix Suns.
Okay.
We finally get to our guys. 45 wins last year. They're over under sitting at 51.5. My first note here is just Beal is better than Landry Shamet and an old Chris Paul. Last year, the Suns were 22nd in pace last year, so that's possessions per 48 minutes. So definitely, bottom third of the league there, and that's definitely room to change. I mean, if we just saw how we were playing in the preseason, it was kind of a crazy jump there in terms of just how fast this team was playing. Last year we did finish 7th in defensive rating as well. So with bringing in a defensive-minded coach like Frank Vogel, I don't expect us to get worse in that department. Ideally, we take a step up and just get all these guys, all these stars to kind of buy in on what the team's going to be doing this year. And then another little more advanced stats for us. Last season we were 3rd in assist percentage, and I know that's basically percent of buckets that were assisted on. So obviously we could see that just watching the games. You could kind of tell that was happening. Funny, in the preseason so far, the Suns have dropped to 10th, but we actually have a higher assist percentage than we did for the entirety of last season. I know preseason, super small sample size. A lot of teams were kind of up near the top that had taken big jumps into 70% and things like that. So I think the ball movement is still going to be there for this Suns team, just looking at these kind of raw numbers. But that's, they're the reason we're doing this podcast. I got them as my 3rd seed.
For sure. And kind of something that we alluded to the first podcast we ever did was the Phoenix Suns are going to have to be good in the regular season if we do want to prove that we're at that level. Because a lot of people like to argue that's what I'm saying. And a lot of people like to argue that seeding doesn't matter. And I think that's more evident in the East maybe than in the West, just because it's so tight in the West right now. There's so many good teams, but those incremental differences between the 8th seed and the 6th seed, I think, are going to be huge. I mean, whether that be injury based or whatever it is, I think that we're going to have to take that shit serious, and we're going to have to take it serious in the sense that we need to mesh and get together, with Beal being new on the team, with Grayson Allen being new on the team. Well, shit, let me scratch that. With more than half the team being new this year, I think it's going to be important for us to gel and be good in that regular season. I even think with 1 out of the 3 big 3 being injured, if little tic-tac, knick-knack injuries, I think we'll be able to win games just off of pure firepower and the will of Frank Vogel on the defensive end. So I'm extremely excited to see them. I wish I could talk about them forever, but we do got to move on to the 4th seed in the West, which is who for you, TJ?
Won 51 games last year, 45.5 over under. Definitely hammering the over here. It's the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah! Hell yeah.
So I do think, last season they were 3rd in defensive rating, giving up 110.7 points per 100 possessions. So, right at the top of the league. I believe only Boston and Cleveland were better than them. So the best defense in the West last year. And then they added Marcus Smart. So I know Dylan Brooks is a good defender when he's not punching people in the nuts. But Marcus Smart is an upgrade there. So I think that's going to be super exciting. I know when I talked about my Taylor Jenkins pick for Coach of the Year, I had mentioned what their record was without Ja and how they've been pretty consistent even without him. And that as long as they can get out to a decent start without him, they're going to be sitting great. I mean, I think we kind of forget with all this drama with Ja Morant, how elite this guy is. He averaged 26 points, 8 assists and 6 rebounds a game in just his 4th season. Obviously, it was only 61 games, just dealing with some kind of back and forth injuries. So we'll see. Another thing that also jumped out to me, Ja's basically eliminated from any of the awards races this year.
Yeah,
because with that 20, he's the most games he can play is 57. So if he does get all 57 and he's playing elite, I think the Grizzlies are going to be awesome. Obviously, there's going to be spots here and there where he's going to miss, but you got to imagine he's going to play 50 games, right? So that's my pick. I know, and then also I want to touch on a little bit of the drama that he's dealt with here. So this might be a TikTok camera moment too. Um, it is dumb to pull out a gun on Instagram Live. It's dumb. It's not a smart decision when you're a millionaire basketball player. It's really dumb to do it twice. But owning a gun in America isn't illegal. It's not a crime. It's in our Constitution, guys. And I'm not a huge gun nut, but I just think that we see Ja Morant. He's got his tattoos, the way he does his hair, kind of the attitude that he brings, and you see a gun in that mix, and you automatically assume the worst things. But I feel like if a player like Gordon Hayward posted a gun on his Instagram story, the NRA is going to give him a fucking sponsorship, and nobody's going to give a shit. It's just when it's a young black millionaire, everyone gets their fucking panties in a twist about it. So that's where I stand on Ja Morant. Obviously it's dumb. We know it's really dumb the second time, but I think 25 games is way too steep of a suspension. That's the same suspension that guys get when they use like steroids and stuff. Like that's just not in the same realm of possible. We're going to let Miles Bridges back into the fucking league and Ja Morant's going to get a 25 game suspension. Like it reeks of hypocrisy and it's fucking bullshit. And that's why I got the Grizzlies as the 4 seed in the West this year.
I think that's a beautiful spiel. I mean, I don't want to use the R word, but that is borderline racist energy that the NBA is giving. And it's just sad to see within our league. I mean, like I said, we're not even the biggest gun guys. We're not the biggest, don't tread on me, but
come and take it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just kind of nasty to see. Like I said, I'll always reiterate, it was dumb as fuck. Like you said, he had a $300 million deal with Pepsi or Powerade, and it did ruin a lot of the contract negotiations there with them, and him being the face of the brand. But it's, like I said, it is dumb. It is dumb, but it is not worthy of, like you said, using steroids. I don't think it's the same thing. It's not a good image for kids to show kids and everything to be followed. But
all these kids play Call of Duty anyway.
That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, I don't know. Like you said, Gordon Hayward's getting an NRA deal. I thought that was hilarious, and I think it's very real. But going back to the actual play of the Grizzlies, I think you're absolutely right with the ceiling of this team, and it might even be a blessing in disguise as a curse for Ja Morant in terms of a guy that's not always injured, but dealing with little tic-tac, injuries. He had that ankle stuff going on against the Lakers squad. And I think with him being able to come in, it's not like he's coming off of an injury for the 25 games. He's going to be coming out hot. I mean, maybe a little unconditioned. I assume not, though. He seems like a guy that's hard at work. I mean, even before he got into the NBA, I feel like that was one of the main things that people focused on was his work ethic and athleticism that he developed himself. So I'm really excited to see what this team will do. I'm really excited to see Marcus Smart have a fuck you year just towards this Boston Celtics. I mean, he is, when I look at him, a Celtic, but if any other team I could see Marcus Smart on, it'd be the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. It's beautiful to see. Like I said, I'm expecting a fuck you year. I'm really sad about Brandon Clark being injured. He was actually one of my guys that I really, really enjoyed to watch last year. With that Achilles, I hope he gets well soon. Not sure what the timetable looks on that. And then with Tyus Jones no longer being on the team, I think that might be a bit of an issue. Being the best, I think it was the best turnover to assist ratio he had last year out of any player in the league, and he was a backup point guard, so he will be missed for sure, but Marcus Smart, I do believe in. Dylan Brooks getting off the team as that distraction. Like I said, all defensive guy, great, but that's a distraction as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It's once Dylan Brooks got off the team, like top to bottom, like this is a really likable roster.
1,000%.
Like
no, 100%.
Nobody doesn't like Steven Adams. Anybody in NBA circles knows that Desmond Bane is legit. So I think there's probably plenty of Marcus Smart haters, but that's just people that have played against him for the last decade. So I think I'm totally with you there. I'm taking the over with the Memphis Grizzlies sitting at the 4 seed. I know it is technically a drop off from where they finished last year, but like we said, with the Lakers kind of being in a weird spot for most of the season, I think the 4 seed is nothing to be ashamed of in this playoffs, especially in how deep this West is. So coming in next at my 5th seed is the Golden State Warriors. We spent a lot of time at the top talking about these guys, but just some kind of key things that jump out to me looking at this roster. Last year they had the fastest pace in the league. And this year, adding CP3, like we mentioned with the Suns, how that inversely is going to be, that's kind of going to be changed coming into this year. I wonder how much that's going to impact them. Obviously, they're not going to adjust how their whole style of play just for getting an old Chris Paul in there. But when he's on the court, it is going to move a little slower, especially when he's running the point. So that's going to be kind of a shift there. If there's ever times where they have like Clay having to slide over and play the 4, I think that's playing way too small ball for my liking, especially with the steps back that he's taken defensively. They were 14th in defense last year, so not great, not near where they were on their championship run when they're really in the heat of the dynasty. But they did have the highest assist rate, so the ball flies around. Chris Paul is definitely gonna maintain that. So the pacing they're gonna be playing a little bit slower this year. So I do think that it might negatively affect them, especially looking back last year, how bad they were on the road. Most of that might have been pointed to that Draymond and Jordan Poole incident, but they're coming in as my 5th seed, going to be on the road in that first round of playoffs against the Grizzlies. But there's still, that series, the Warriors could easily win a series against the Grizzlies, and that's definitely going to be a team that's going to be on our radar. And again, the West is just so deep. Like somebody has to be the 5th seed, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a numbers game at the end of the day. I don't have too much to add on with the Golden State Warriors just because we did, like you said, talk about them a lot at the beginning. But I think this is one of the main teams, if not the main team, that doesn't give a fuck about seeding. I mean, we saw it last year going against the Sacramento Kings. They did take care of business. It took 7 games and for Steph Curry to break the record for like 3 days for most points in a game 7. But I do see this as a team that's more set on business of the postseason. I mean, Chris Paul trying to keep him healthy as long as possible. They might have to sit him out a ton of games this year intentionally, trying to avoid the load management rules as much as possible. I think it's a great pick. 5th seed Golden State Warriors. Who do you got at the 6th seed, barely edging out of the play-in?
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
At the 6? Oh, shit.
At the
okay.
6.
Okay.
At the
Wow.
6.
I did not expect this.
Their over-under is sitting at 44.5. They, we all know Shea had 30 points per game last year, first team All-NBA. They didn't have a center on their roster last year. Now they're sliding in Chet Holmgren, who looks like he's going to have an impact on day one. And something kind of fun that I wanted to throw out about Jalen Williams, from an Arizona native, played against him personally in high school when he was at Perry High. He was the first rookie ever to average 14 points a game and shoot 50% from the field, 35 from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. So I think that's obviously kind of nitpicky stats, kind of arbitrary numbers there, but it's still impressive, and he's going to be legit. Look for him to take a big leap. That kid spends so much time in the gym. Like, that's all he cares about. I saw an interview with him the other day. He was doing a podcast with somebody where they mentioned kind of like girls in the league, and he basically said, I don't mess around with that stuff. Don't slide in my DMs asking me to fly you out. I'm in the gym. I'm going to bed early. We got a game tomorrow, which really made me feel good about kind of his future. So definitely excited about his continued growth, and definitely always going to be rooting for him. So I have the Thunder as my 6th seed.
That's awesome. I mean, I do like the pick. I think they might take the regular season more serious than some of the other bigger real contender teams. Not to call out OKC frauds or anything like that, but I do think that they're a little bit away from being in that contention area. I did want to hit on real quick before we move on to the next one was, do you think Chet Holmgren is going to be able to stay healthy all year? And do you think SGA is a top 10 player in the league already at this point?
When it comes to Shea as a top 10 guy, I'm not quite there yet. That top 10 is a very, it's one of those things where people always love to say, oh, this guy's top 10. It's like, all right, well, who are you moving out then? Like, who is he replacing in that top 10 list? So I don't quite see it. If we're talking top 15, top 20 in the league, absolutely, definitely there with you. I do think Chet, again, talking about health, it's kind of a hard thing to place a bet on, right? But he's gotten a lot stronger over the last year, just training in NBA facilities and really being kind of like up for it. So, his injury last year might've been a little fluky with him getting hurt in a pickup game. Right. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes. He was durable at Gonzaga. So I definitely, it's something to watch out for and be wary of, but I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Okay. No, hear you absolutely. I'll just say off the bat, I do not have him that high at all. But I respect the pick. I understand. So who do we got barely getting into that play-in spot at the 7th seed?
So a team that's definitely going to take a big step back from last year, and it's the Sacramento Kings. Over under sitting at 44.5, won 48 games last year, had the best offense in the league, but also had a bottom 7 defense. They were blessed with good health all season last year. You know, the light the beam energy was crazy in that building. So definitely don't think it's not going to be a huge step back. Like we said, the West just has a lot of great teams this year. Definitely points towards expansion for sure. But I do think that, you know, the Kings are going to have to take a step back and end up in the play-in game this year.
For sure. All right. Well, we got the Kings right there at the number 7 spot. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of mad Sacramento fans. I mean, even ones in my life that saw my previous video where I had them at the same spot, at the number 7 spot. They were pissed off saying that the lack of health or the health luck that they had is going to be something that's going to be consistent. And I don't know how someone could guarantee that. I mean, Sabonis did play with a broken hand. De'Aaron Fox plays a very herky-jerky game as well and very quick. So I don't know. Never, ever, ever want to prey on anybody's downfall in terms of health, but I would like to be proven wrong. Who do you got at that 8th seed?
The Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, our boy.
Timberwolves, baby.
You were one of those guys who wanted Ant to be that number 1, that first team All NBA, or who has expectations potentially to do so.
I think definitely does. He's gonna. This is gonna be a leap year for him in terms of just coming off of the FIBA game. Everyone's been talking about him. He's a grinder. He's gonna be in the gym. I do want to give you some read some names off of a list. So of players in their 3rd season to average 24 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, Anthony Edwards is the 10th guy to do it. Here's who else has done it: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Connie Hawkins, Suns legend, ABA legend, Hall of Famer for you fucking casuals. Mark Aguirre, 3-time All-Star. Okay, he's not a slouch. Mm-hmm. And then Luka, Ja, and Zion. With obviously Zion did it on like less games and all that kind of stuff.
13 games.
That's 5 Hall of Famers with 3 kind of potential Hall of Famers moving forward. I also do think that Karl-Anthony Towns is getting traded this year. I think this experiment is over. I don't think they're going to be able to move Gobert. And I honestly kind of like that duo a little bit better, just knowing that keeping Gobert on the defensive end and just having him get the fuck out of the way on offense. So I do totally believe in Anthony Edwards this year, especially if Cat does move. That's going to be a lot more shots for him. So I think that plays well into that first team All-NBA take. And then, I mean, Jaden McDaniels is legit as long as he's not punching walls, right?
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. I think one day we need to have a Cat venting session just because I feel like me and you aren't too high on the guy. Love me a big man shooter.
Big Dirk Nowitzki guy.
Well, technically what the Timberwolves did was more impressive than the Nuggets, right?
Yeah.
The Pat Bev standing on the table will forever be in memory. I think I do like the pick. I mean, I'm just a little nervous with some of the teams that are still left that could potentially rise over them. Like I said, I don't want to spoil the list, but man, I think I like the chances of. I think I like the Pelicans a little bit more than them. I can't lie to you, man. I don't know. I'll let you. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But hitting with that number 9 seed, that team that's scrapping and fighting their way to get into the playoffs. Who do you got?
This one I didn't even pull any numbers for. Purely a vibes pick. The Los Angeles Clippers at the 9 seed. I'm just done. I can't do it anymore. We've been on this roller coaster with Kawhi and Paul George for however long now. I want to say since the 2019-2020 season that they've been together. Are they going to get Harden? We'll wait and see. As of now, it seems like that's going to take a really long time to get Daryl Morey to accept that offer. We saw how patient he was with Ben Simmons. I don't see any reason for that to change now. People were really high on how Westbrook played once he did get added to the Clippers, but we also saw the issues with him on the Lakers. So don't totally know there. As you know, I'm not the biggest Westbrook guy in the world. I always lean Harden anyway, being an Arizona State guy. But I'm out on the Clippers. I'm done. Their over-under is 46.5. I'm taking the under. They won 44 games last year.
And it really sucks with them because they could have a phenomenal regular season, and it always feels like we're consistently disappointed, whether it be the 2020 year where they had everybody available, and it was the bubble, so we'll give them that. But Jesus Christ, every other year, one of the top two guys is hurt, and it's usually Kawhi, but this last year it wasn't. I mean, it turned into being Kawhi Leonard, and he was scary. It's terrifying as a Suns fan to watch him go ahead and go off in those first two games. I mean, we saw it in person, as we've talked about before, but I as well cannot put any more fucking stock into this team. I'm sorry. And I'm not even loving the bench pieces either, because like you said, if they do bring in Harden, who are they going to be having left? I mean, I love Norman Powell as much as the next guy, but shit, what do we do with Trey Mann out there? I don't know what we're doing out there. I think that's an awesome pick. That's literally where I have the Clippers too, at that number 9 seed. I totally understand. The thing is, I could also see the Clippers being the 4 seed and still losing in the first round of the playoffs. Like, either way, this is not a team I would put any money on. They're just they're a nasty wild card. You know, it's not the positive, like, oh, you know, they're
not betting on OKC where you're going to be excited to watch them play. It's just going to be, you know, you're just going to be holding, You're just going to get headaches.
Fuck, Kawhi's grabbing his knee again. Fuck. All right, so who do you have that team in the very last spot?
The Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, I'm glad.
So no Pelicans on my list, as you had kind of alluded to before. I think my biggest issue, I do kind of have more negatives than positives when it comes to Dallas, so I could maybe be talked into them maybe not making the play-in. They were 29-26 before adding Kyrie, 9-16 the rest of the way. I believe they were 8-12 in games that he did suit up. There were some games that he was out. They were a bottom 6 defense. Like, Grant Williams is going to help with that, but he's not going to be like a world beater when it comes to the defensive end. They're going to get torched by anybody with a decent guard. Like, Luka and Kyrie don't defend anybody. I'm sorry. Luka last year had a 37% usage percentage. Only 5 players have had more than him. That's Russell Westbrook in 16-17, Harden in 18-19, 05-06 Kobe, Russell Westbrook again, and then Michael Jordan in 86-87. None of those guys won a championship. All on good teams. I know that Kobe team was, I believe they missed the playoffs that year. Not totally sure on that Jordan team. I know that's a few years in the league for him. I don't totally see it with them. You could talk me into them being out and the Pelicans sliding in here, but I think the 10 is kind of where their destiny lies.
All right. No, I hear you. I'm glad that you do have him on the list, period, though. I know you're not the biggest Kyrie guy in the world, just in terms of being a winning basketball player. We've talked about it before, that those guys are just, you know, like Kyrie by himself is such a great player. But in terms of winning basketball, in terms of doing what it takes to, whether it be off the court or on the court, to make it happen, he's consistently shown that he's not willing to do so since 2016. So I do like that pick. So you have the Pelicans barely edging out. Do you have any love for the Utah Jazz or anything like that? Like, do they give any consideration?
No, that Jazz start last year really felt fluky to me. It didn't feel like it was anything of like major substance. You know, teams like the Spurs, they're not going to be competing for the playoffs. The Blazers aren't. Who else am I missing here? So yeah, like you said, the Pelicans.
Yeah.
And then the Rockets.
Rockets aren't.
You know, those teams aren't going to be competing in the same ways that these other teams are. But that 1 through 10 is like really like they're superstars on like 1 through 10, and that's pretty crazy to me.
No, super excited to see the season. So when we're rounding out the list again, to clarify, can you say your list one more time?
Let's do it. So with the 1 seed, I'm going just 1 through 10. I got the Denver Nuggets, the Lakers, the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Thunder, the Kings, the Timberwolves, the Clippers, and then the Mavericks.
So initially when we made up this segment, we did want to combine our own list together and see, you know, whose list was, or if we could combine one right now list. But man, I just don't know if we can come to the same consensus when it comes to the New Orleans Pelicans, because I totally understand the side. If you want to tell me, hey, Zion hasn't played X amount of games in how many years, I understand.
And he hasn't done anything to show us that he will.
No, and I understand, and I do want to bring up the example of the GM saying that he is taking it serious, but people have said crazier things before and lied, so I'm not going to use that. But Zion is 23 years old. I want to remind everybody, 23 years old. And when we have seen him play, I'm not saying he's going to be the same athletic specimen that he was at Duke. I do think that potentially a lot of that could be lost. I don't think we're going to be seeing him jump from the block all the way to a corner three and blocking that shit. But I do think we can still see an efficient monster, a Charles Barkley-like performance from a guy who's got maybe better measurables. I think better measurables than Charles Barkley. And Brandon Ingram, I'm not totally off on either. I've mentioned before that he drops 25 a game is not some bullshit though.
Yeah, but he looked like a chump on the FIBA team. I know that doesn't mean a lot, but like with other top players, like if you looked at that roster, Brandon Ingram is supposed to be the best player. Like he had the best.
Tim Duncan looked like a scrub.
Tim Duncan looked like a scrub in 03. I'm not calling him Tim Duncan, but you're calling him a scrub during FIBA. I don't know. No way. And are you CJ McCollum believer at all? The 20-point per game scorer?
No. They've played less than 200 minutes altogether, those three guys. In how many years has it been? 3-4 years?
Oh, stop. Not 3 years. CJ hasn't been on the team for 3 years.
I'm going to fucking fact check that.
I just think while you're looking at that, I just think that Zion Williams, the bait is real. I want to remind everybody what we were saying when he was coming into the league. I want to remind everybody what he showed in his sophomore year with the 60% true shooting percentage. I just think it's absolutely absurd for us to get all the way off the train. And if we are blessed with just a season of Zion Williamson,
Okay, yeah, it was 2022. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. That's like 4 games worth of basketball they played together, though.
Zion didn't play all last year. If we are blessed with just one season of Zion Williamson, I think there's a world where they're not even in the play-in. They're in that 6 seed spot. But I totally understand your position there. That's why I'm not going to have too much pushback. And I think everywhere else I'm pretty happy about. The Los Angeles Lakers, I personally had them in the 4 seed just because I still respect everything that they're doing. The new Manu Ginobili and Austin Reeves I think is going to be awesome for this squad and the supporting pieces that they have. I even like Rui Hachimura, which is some people call him a little bit overrated now after that playoff run. I really like what I saw from him. I think the Wizards are just kind of a shithole organization that not respectfully. I'm sorry.
It's a shithole organization. Disrespectfully.
And I think that they're hiding talent over there to this day with Danny over there. I really like his game. And I think Rui Hachimura is finally in a position where he could be his true self. And that's not a star. That is a role star. And I love to see it from the Lakers. I do have the Memphis Grizzlies at the 3 spot and the Phoenix Suns at the 2 spot. Memphis, kind of the same points as you, just a little bit higher on them. And like I said, I understand. The West is fucking stacked. But that was our Western Conference predictions right there. We're going to get into the East. We're probably going to fly through these just because we are running a little over on time, but stay tuned.
I'm going to hit the second question first about Shea. Oh, hey, look at those ones. I was trying to get that to work earlier and I wasn't fucking doing it.
And we are back. We're going to be looking over the Eastern Conference seedings. As we just went over the West, there's a few controversial ones, not a ton. I honestly think we're talking during the break. We might have very similar teams. We did keep it surprise, so we don't actually know. But I'll start us off. I'll be going through my list. At number 1, I'm going to have the Milwaukee Bucks. Yep. So, it looks like we might already have a difference already, but I'm just going to state the obvious. Giannis and Dame, they want to gel together as much as possible throughout the season. I mean, even if just one of them sits out, I could see this team still winning a ton of games because they've already shown up to this point that they're able to do it on teams that are a little less talented. And I do understand the difference of having Jrue Holiday on defense and not, but whether that's Dame getting hurt with another shoulder injury that we've seen before, a little ankle roll, we could see Giannis go absolutely berserk on the offensive and defensive end. And then with Damian Lillard being out there by himself with the others, I mean, like we talked about in the last podcast, Bobby Portis is obviously would never compare him to Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he is a good forward to go ahead and plug in there. I'm super excited to see them in the regular season. I also think there'll be a bunch of times where in the third quarters there'll be blowouts with this team and there'll be a lot of sitting down like the 2017 Warriors. And I'm not saying they're in the same skill level, but I am saying that this team will be absolutely dominant. And then I do always want to preface that Giannis this season is not the first option on offense. And I think that statement alone is absurd. Being a guy who just averaged 30 points a game, coming in with a guy who averaged 32 points a game. And so I'm saying once he crosses half court, speaking on Damian Lillard, once he crosses past half court, he's going to be the first option that people are looking at. And and like I said, that statement alone is fucking ridiculous. We're going to see a bunch of pick and rolls. We're going to see a bunch of pick and pops, not with Giannis, but with like a Brook Lopez or a Chris Middleton. And lastly,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it could be a unique situation where you're right, where Dame is the number one option, but Giannis could finish scoring more points a game. I know it sounds weird, but that's kind of how it can kind of all flow together. But continue on to your next point.
No, I think that's a great point to hit on, because real basketball heads know just because you're the first option, that is you drawing in more people. I mean, that's why we saw, for example, Steph Curry not scoring as many points as Kevin Durant, because the gravity that he brings to the table, he is the first option. So I love to see how Giannis does with Dame. I mean, I think the offensive rebounding numbers are probably going to go way up with the focus on double teaming Dame or on the screen action, people not necessarily knowing how to defend if they blitz it, and that's going to give them clear lanes for people to crash hard on the glass. And then my last point, I just want to mention that these guys are going to be fourth quarter demons. I mentioned it in one of the Dash and Hoop videos before, but Damian Lillard, king of the fourth quarter. We've seen Chris Middleton in the NBA Finals hitting double team mid-range jumpers in people's faces over Mikal Bridges for 3-pointers with 1 minute left in the game, down 2. And Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't a chump when it comes to the free throw line, and it matters most. Do you have any points you wanted to add on to this?
No, I think it's great to bring up that they do finally have a true closer when it comes to the fourth quarter. So I think that can, a lot of those kind of toss those coin flip games, you kind of got to give the edge to them. There's not a lot of guys in the league that are going to be better in the fourth or in the last few possessions than Damian Lillard. So totally with you there. But I think I know who you have as your 2 seed.
Yeah, and it's obvious. I mean, it was honestly a toss-up between them and the Bucks, and that's going to be the Boston Celtics. My first point that I stated about how I think the third quarter blowouts are going to be very prevalent, it's going to be just as prevalent for the Celtics. I mean, this team is way too talented to be keeping, bum-ass teams around for the whole game. They're going to take care of business with, like, the Rockets, the Charlotte Hornets. They're going to do with the Detroit Pistons. All those lower teams, the Celtics have historically known how to close out those teams early within the game. Their defense is just too damn good. They have firepower. Tingus Pingus is totally okay with hitting deep threes just to absolutely crush your soul when you can't stop Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, or Jrue Holiday from getting to the rim. And let's not act like Derek White isn't crafty enough to get points of his own. You know what I'm saying? And Jrue Holiday being an upgraded version of Marcus Smart is exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. I mean, and then lastly, the only reason why that I only have this team at 2 and not 1 is because of, historically Tingus Pingus's health. And so we'll see what comes of that. I mean, I hope that he has another, not breakout year, because I think people who know what Porzingus brings to the table. And then the last point I did want to hit on, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. I think Jaylen Brown is going to remind motherfuckers who he is. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a top 10 player in the league, but Jaylen Brown was getting buckets.
The conversation has been very weird around him.
Getting nasty, right?
He outplayed Tatum in that finals against the Warriors. It's all, I mean, the jokes are easy, especially when like the Celtics social team posts the video of him dribbling with his left and it's all over the fucking place. So I'm a huge Jaylen Brown fan. So super excited to kind of see what they're going to do this year. The biggest thing that jumped out to me about the Celtics, though, was they finished second in offensive and defensive rating last year, right, in both separate categories. And they really got better at both. They got better on offense by adding Porzingus. It just gives you a lot more versatility and another guy that you can just throw the ball to, and he can go get you a bucket. Like Porzingus does have a bag. And then swapping, Jrue Holiday for Marcus Smart. If you want to call that if you want to call them even, fine. If you want to say Drew's a little bit better, like I think most people are leaning nowadays. They got better on both ends of the floor. Jason Tatum averaged 30 points and 8 rebounds a game last year. He's going to be an MVP candidate this year. I did have the Celtics as my 1 seed and the Bucks at 2, but easily, I mean, it's a coin flip.
It's flip-flop. No, absolutely. I agree. I think those are good points to make. I think, like you said, I do agree that Jrue Holiday is better than Marcus Smart. Big Marcus Smart guy. I like the charges. I like the annoying play that he does, but I do think that Jrue Holiday is a lot better. So, man, I could absolutely be convinced that the Celtics would be the number 1 seed. But coming into third, and this is what I was kind of interested in, if you would also agree with this, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to redo it. I think they're going to be the
same. I got them as my 3 as well.
There you go. And this is an excellent regular season team. I mean, the best defense last year, the number one ranked defense last year. Mobley's going to be 1 year older. I know me and you are very high on Mobley.
It's a step up year for him, though.
Absolutely. No, it has to be a step up year. It has to be hey, I'm putting on weight. I'm able to put the ball in the basket. I'm able to hit my 3-pointers. And I'm not even asking him to be an excellent 3-point shooter necessarily, but I do need him
you got to have to guard him. He's got to make people guard him.
1,000%. And then we're looking at the guard play. Donovan Mitchell is really, really good at basketball. Let's not forget that he can drop 70 points on a team's head if that happens. You know what I'm saying? If the opportunity presents itself. We saw the battles in the West whenever the Suns would play Utah against Booker and Mitchell, and that was always the comparison. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's better than Devin Booker, but he was in those conversations, right?
100%. 100%. And this is the stat that I found for Donovan Mitchell. This is for players that have scored 28 points a game, 48% from the field, and 38% from three in a minimum of 65 games. These are the guys that did that over their entire career. Donovan Mitchell did it last year. Michael Jordan did it once. Kevin Durant did it 4 times. Steph did it once, and Larry Bird did it 3 times. And only Kevin Durant did it before age 26, which was what Donovan Mitchell was last year. Going to be 27 going into this year. We made this point about Booker earlier in the year. That's entering your prime. So he is going to be, like you said, they are built for the regular season. I can see them racking up a ton of wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they do even jump up a little higher in the standings, but I do think 3 is the right spot for them as far as the regular season's concerned.
It's delicious. I'm going to love watching this team regardless if Jared Allen is too scared. The lights are too bright for him and during the playoffs. The regular season is going to be very fun. They'll definitely be a league pass team for me. And lastly, I don't know if this is a spicier point to hit on the Cavs, but Darius Garland is the closest thing right now that we have in the league to Steve Nash. And let me explain. He's able to pass the ball. He's able to dish, but the efficiency, the three-pointer that he has on him is so wet. And it's almost to the point where he needs to be taking more 3-pointers as a whole. And he's not exactly the best thing. He's not fucking, Marcus Smart out there on the perimeter. He's not Gary Payton in terms of defense, but he's willing to put his body on the line and try to go after that. I mean, the Cavs scheme last year was to run everybody off on the 3-ball and allow those mid-range jumpers just because, they did have those big guys at the rim. But, I think I can see a jump being taken for him too. Big fan of his, big fan of that backcourt. Now, postseason is where it gets a little sticky with these guys, but we're strictly talking regular season, so I'm going to have to cement my pick at number 3 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then at number 4, this might come to a shock for some fans. It's going to be the New York Knicks.
I was close. I almost put him there. No. I got him sitting at 5, but go ahead.
No, I completely understand. I know you're super high on this guy along with me. Jalen Brunson. You talked about it in the last pod. He is one of the clutchest players in the league, and I thought was an awesome pick for clutch player of the year. I didn't even cross my mind, but he's one of the shiftiest guys that we have in the NBA, and is he low-key still the most underrated player? I don't know. He's up there, right, in terms of quote-unquote all-star level talent?
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's definitely a world where he makes an all-star team this year. Gotta love what they're trying to cook up in New York. This is also where I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to end up.
Ooh.
So I think might give him a little bump too. There's always new face in a new space. He's going to play harder, play better, all those things. So if that does come through, definitely got to be on the lookout for the Knicks. Over under sitting at 45.5. They won 47 last year. I think, they were 7th in net rating last year. So the difference between offensive and defensive rating. So definitely an upper echelon team as far as that's concerned. I think the question marks come with just kind of where are we at with Julius Randle and RJ Barrett? RJ Barrett's a really inefficient scorer, even if he can, scored 19 a game last year, 20 the year before. Randle in a similar boat where he can kind of float in and out of games and you kind of lose track of him. So they do have some question marks, but not enough question marks to put him lower than 5.
Hell yeah. And to speak on with what you were saying with Julius Randle, history would tell us that this is the down year for Julius Randle. We see on year, off year, and this is supposed to be the off year, but The difference is there's a consistent point guard position now. There's someone there who's going to be filling that role and being the leader. So I think he'll be good. And then to speak on what you're saying with RJ Barrett, I do see a universe where he does fully accept and embrace his star role player status. I mean, I think he can be an amazing role player. I do think the organization of the New York Knicks and the Knicks fans are still kind of expecting him to be, one of those guys, because he was in that same draft class with Zion and Ja, right?
He needs to follow what Andrew Wiggins has done and learn to play in that kind of mold. Obviously, he's not on the Warriors, so it's a little different when there's like a championship pedigree hanging around. But I think that's kind of the archetype that he should follow. Just because, again, Andrew Wiggins is another inefficient kind of volume scorer. So definitely excited to watch the Knicks this year. It's always fun when the Knicks are good, when MSG is rocking, when they're involved in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So I have them sitting at my 5 seed. I know you have them at 4, but it was tough to do it.
For sure. And just a flip-flop going into the 5 seed, I'm assuming with your 4 seed, was it the 76ers? Yeah, exactly. And to touch on them, poor Philly fans at this point, right? I mean, the Embiid trade request is getting more and more real every single day.
That's exactly what I have in my notes.
That's what I'm saying. And then it's just, and I'm not exactly sure where he's going to go. I mean, I've heard my favorite personally would probably be like the Mavericks. I mean, I fucking hate the Mavericks.
Oh, I haven't even heard that or really thought of it about the Mavericks. That would be great.
If that was possible, that'd be my favorite.
Yeah, sure. I don't know how the contracts match up, but no, I like that. The Knicks have been the other one thrown out there as well. I guess the question that I wrote down was, is Embiid on the Sixers in 2 years? He's going to be 20. He's going to be 29 this year too. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely not. I would bet a lot of money he's still not on the Philadelphia.
You take the field. I feel you. Oh, yeah. I feel like the field's got to be the favorite. I do want to call something out about his age as well. So last year he averaged like 30 and 12. Only 6 centers have had 25 and 10 at 29 or older. So David Robinson did it twice. Hakeem did it 4 times. Shaq twice. Wilt once. Kareem 3 times. And Anthony Davis, I know he says he's a power forward. You're a fucking center, bro. He did it once. So you kind of worry about the longevity here, especially with his style of play and just kind of the amount of injuries that he sustained since he got into the league. So it's definitely a good question. Every team in the league is going to pick up the phone for the guy. So it's just going to be, it's kind of a matter of not if, but when.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the case. And with all the Harden drama going on, it does suck to be a Philly fan at the moment, I would have to assume. Because you're not gonna get the full value of whatever James Harden value is. I know he averaged 10 assists last year, but
people know he's just going to quit on people all the time. What can you do? Like, how much value does the guy really have? There's only one. The Clippers are the only one that want him, and they don't have the offer that Daryl Morey wants. So it might just be a stalemate.
It's going to be a stalemate, and the only bright spot that the 76ers really have to look at, obviously they have Joel Embiid, but as we're talking about, he might be out of there soon. But I am a huge fan of Tyrese Maxey out there. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's going to save them some face. I think we're going to see a huge jump from him. He's a very quick player, high decision-making. I love how he's always willing to push the ball. That's why it was so irritating to watch him with Harden sometimes. It was Maxey
complement each other.
No, not at all. When Maxey is sprinting his ass off, and that helps in so many ways. Basketball players know if you're running the floor even without the ball, you're going to get the defense scrambling. You're going to have some mismatches that you're going to force right away just by running the floor hard. And Tyrese Maxey wasn't being, used in the correct way last year, and he's doing everything he can, having a shitty, the 2020 draft class, not even having a real first full season. It's just a bad start. And he's been willing to adapt in every sense of the way. And I hope this is the year where we get Harden out of there. It'll be a little bit easier for him. And the last thing I wanted to touch on with the 76ers at the 5 spot is maybe the reason why I have them a little bit lower than most people is I am biased against Embiid. I don't love his play style.
And I'm with you. I think we talked about this last year where, it was kind of bad timing by us, but before the season just being like, I think I'm out on Embiid. It's not an enjoyable watching experience, especially once you tagged in Harden too. Just a lot of they're foul merchants, which can be really frustrating to watch, especially with a guy of that size. Like, you want him to be playing aggressive and not be settling for so many threes. But he's still elite. Obviously, just won the MVP award. Should be another contender for that award this year. As long as he can kind of stay healthy. But totally with you. Totally understand why they're at your 5. Like I said, I was this close to putting the Knicks at 4 and them at 5. So right now we got all the same teams so far. A couple of just like flip flop positions. But I think I want to hear your number 6. I have a feeling we're going to be the same again.
You know how high I am on this team, how high I am on their star player.
I know who you're gonna say, but I think I have them at 7 actually. So let me hear this at 6.
And if you could look at the under over for these guys, I don't have it at the moment, but I'm taking the over regardless. But number 6. In Halliburton, we trust. I got the Indiana Pacers. This is my jump team, and I'll be tuned into every single game this year. I'm guessing they were at your 7 spot?
They were at my 7. They're over-under sitting at 38.5. They won 35 games last year. Easily can see them winning 40, 41 games, 42, whatever you want to call it.
Tyler won't. He's not allowed, but I'm putting some money on that one. I need my Pacers. They're going to be up there. I'm full-fledged. I'm all the way in.
Now, I got another one of those stats about, only guys to ever have this stat line. There have been 4 guys with 20 points and 10 assists per game by age 22. It's Chris Paul, Kevin Johnson, the greatest player to never make the Hall of Fame, Suns legend, and Pistons Isaiah Thomas. Some would say the real Isaiah Thomas. That's really good. That's great company to be in.
Come on. Tyrese is that guy. I've been trying to tell people since day one. He is the next point guard. He's filling in the position of Chris Paul, except maybe hopefully a championship somewhere in there. So I'm just so excited. And I don't care, we did talk about how Jokic does make these guys look good, but I was a fan of Bruce Brown personally when he was on the Nets, and I understand he did get paid because of Jokic. I'm not going to be act stupid, but
it's not that Bruce Brown's bad. It's just that it's a little different. Like I do think he'll make the Pacers better, but not by as the Nuggets aren't going to be that much worse because of him.
No, I totally agree. And playing with somebody who, if anybody's going to be able to compare with Jokic's passing, I mean, you probably have to go with the guy who averaged 10 assists last year, right?
Mm-hmm. No, and the Pacers also, they were 5th in pace last year, funny enough. So they get out and run. Halliburton is definitely the floor general out there. And then with their draft, I really like their draft pick, Jarris Walker out of the University of Houston. He's going to be, he plays kind of like an old school power forward, which I really like. Maybe not old school, but like early 2000s power forward. Same thing with Obi Toppin. It's going to be a lot of lobs, a lot of fast breaks, a lot of dunks, and definitely fun to watch. Definitely going to be, they're going to be in the league pass rotation for sure.
1,000,000,000%. I am just over the top excited for this team with the addition of, like you said, Obi Toppin. I mean, Miles Turner had himself a career year last year with in terms of all his points and stats as a whole. Buddy Hield already being regarded as one of the best shooters ever in terms of efficiency. I know if he's still on the team, I know there's contract disputes and everything, but Benedict Mathurin showing he can put the ball in the hoop as a rookie last year. And as you said, Jarris Walker is playing as that 2000s type big that's going to fill in the dirty work and do what a 4 does. Super excited for this Pacers team. But going into the play-in spot, I have my least favorite team and player. I'm sorry, I know that's where you're residing at the moment, TJ, but the Atlanta Hawks. I just one thing. I don't even want to go in super in depth on this one. I just want to ask one question. Who the fuck wants to play defense for someone who pulls 40 footers 7 seconds into the shot clock? Not me. Not me. So I don't know where this team's ceiling is or what their floor is. They're probably going to be, I'm not stupid. I do think they're going to win a few games. You can win off of that Trae Young bullshit. I just hope AJ Griffin has a better situation at some point in his career because I do think he's very good. I don't want to see him stuck here.
I hear you. They were one of the tougher teams to figure out where I was going to rank them. I actually had them coming at 8, not 7. So I think there's one team that I think you're messing up on a team on a team that you shouldn't be. But I do some numbers that jumped out to me with them. They took the least amount of threes per game last year, but they led the league in field goals made per game. So taking a lot of 2s outside of Trae Young. Mm-hmm. Trae had a 32% usage percentage. I know we had mentioned that, kind of those higher numbers. Luke at 37. That's still a ridiculous number. DeJounte Murray's comes in at 24%. So that's 2 really high usage guys that need to have the ball all the time. Personally, I really enjoy DeJounte Murray's game, especially living in Atlanta. We get to go see Hawks games every season. So a ton of fun to watch. I saw DeJounte Murray drop 40 against who I think it was when they played the Blazers. So got to see that, which was, super fun to watch. But also in my notes is that they are about as deep as a kiddie pool. They just don't have anybody outside of those top guys, outside of like Bogdanovich, who might be on the trade block this year, depending on how things go. And there's a lot of teams that would like his talents. So totally hear you there. Don't know if Trey and DeJounte can totally coexist as winners, but I'm going to go to games. Going to see a lot of lobs. The Hawk Stadium is also amazing. So shout out to those guys. Atlanta knows how to build them some stadiums. So shout out to the city. But yeah, totally with you. So who do you got next?
So at the 8 spot, and I understand if people have these guys way higher or even at the 10 seed, but I have the Miami Heat. I can just never
count out the squad.
You had them at 6, Miami Heat?
Them at 6. This is another one where it was just no logic, just vibes. I looked at all their numbers. I mean, they were they were a bad regular season team last year.
They were awful
by most measures. They're built for the playoffs, but I think that this year, they need to try to avoid the play-in as best as they can. I know that they're not worried about it because when you got Jimmy Buckets on your side, you're not going to be worried about a single game. Like, you always feel like you have a shot. But we also saw them get embarrassed by, the Bulls in the first play-in game last year.
Yeah, they were 2 minutes away from losing.
If you guys want to actually have another shot at a title, they have to finish top 6. So that's where I threw them in at. But totally understand they easily could slide down from, they're another team that you could see them being the 3 seed, or you could see them being the 10 seed, right? Like, who knows?
For sure. And I don't even think there's not a lot to speak on with the Heat because they're absolutely unpredictable. Like you said, it would be nice if they could avoid that playing spot. That was a little too chippy for my liking too, if I'm a Heat fan, or I am a Jimmy Butler fan, and I didn't really want to see the Chicago Bulls prevail over them. But, I always just believe in this team. Can never, ever count them out. Like you said, they're built for the playoffs. I would bet all my life savings that they're going to somehow end up in the playoffs. If they were at the 10th seed or if they were at the 7th seed, they're going to figure out a way how to get in there. And there's just one thing I want to add on there. Celtics fans, I hope you're nervous. I like the Celtics. I like a lot of the players on there, but for some reason, I have a feeling that like Jovic is going to somehow shoot 53% from 3 with like 32 points in a game 7 against the Celtics in the Garden. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if just they're going to pick up some guy, some rookie that was like the 32nd pick, and he just goes off for 27.
They're going to sign fucking Tristan Jass, and he's going to drop in 25. He's going to score 12 points and get 8 assists in a playoff game.
Coach Spo's like, come out of this elevator screen. You're going to be hoping.
Exactly. So, no, totally with you there.
I'm excited.
Who you got next?
And then just to wrap it up real quick, we'll finish off these last 2 just because the East is a little bit weaker towards the end. I have my beloved Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I love this team. Huge Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson guy for obvious reasons, being Suns fans. Just want to see them eat over there, and I do think that if they do want to be competitive, they'll eventually have to get Mikal somebody as I do think in my heart of hearts that Mikal Bridges can be an amazing 2. I'll be real. I mean, ideally it would be the 3. I mean, we saw it with the Suns, but he was a little bit younger, didn't have that experience of being able to have that ball and work. We saw a little bit of it in that second half of the Suns season and in the last end of the Brooklyn Nets year. But I would love to see him get some help at some point. Just this year, I'm not sure what direction they really want to follow in. And Cam Johnson's will always be my guy. Fuck with him heavy. That finals dunk poster that he had. Love you, Cam. Love you.
I absolutely love that pick. And I honestly think that I want to slide them into my 9 spot as well. I had the Raptors at first. And just kind of hearing that case, and obviously I love Mikal Bridges, love Cam Johnson. Don't really love Ben Simmons, but we'll see. We'll see what he's up to this year. I think the problem with them was once they did make that trade, like Mikal was putting up big numbers, but they weren't winning at a very high rate. The playoffs it really came out to be a dud for them. So totally get the case there and can definitely be convinced to slide them in over the Raptors. But with that being said, who's your number 10?
At number 10, this one was really just pure vibes. I love the Raptors. Big fan of Pascal Siakam. Kind of intrigued as to what they're actually doing, though, at the moment. So for that reason.
That's right. They're in purgatory.
They're in a weird purgatory.
Yeah.
And a team that's not in purgatory, and I think they want to go ahead and win some games, is my guy Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and friends over there with the Orlando Magic. I still got some faith in Markelle Fultz. You know, shout out to him. They fucked up
my guy shot. Shout out to J. Cole.
But I think that, you know, they could end up doing something. Markelle Fultz had some great flashes in terms of attacking the rim, in terms of dishing the ball. He's obviously probably never going to be that elite shooter that we once saw when he was at, was it Washington?
Washington, yep.
Washington. I don't think we'll ever get back to that, but I really like this team. I really think Paolo Banchero had an underrated rookie season last year. I mean, he was the consensus landslide pick as to being rookie of the year, and yet people want to already forget about him. I'm not having it, and I saw Franz Wagner kill it today. I mean, not today, and this year in the FIBA. I'm here for it.
Paolo killed it. Paolo looked awesome in FIBA. He just I can't help but think about Carmelo Anthony when I see Paolo hoop. Definitely an older, like a New York Knicks Melo, but I totally see that comparison and love it. I did not have I had them just on the outside. I think they're a year away.
Definitely understand.
But love what they've got cooking down there, especially like Magic fans got to be absolutely thrilled.
Ecstatic, bro.
I do, you know, in my 10 spot, I had the Bulls still.
Okay.
Another team like the Raptors that are in that kind of middle ground purgatory state in the NBA, which is the worst place to be, especially in this league. You know, Levine and DeRozan can get that team 38, 40 wins. I think that's very possible. Their offensive firepower. They were the 5th best defense last year, which is definitely impressive and jumped out to me. You'd really like to see Lonzo in the lineup. If Lonzo's in the lineup, I would feel a lot more comfortable about this pick, especially as us being huge Lonzo guys, like since the Chino Hills UCLA days, really. So it would be nice, but totally see what you're saying with the Magic. And yeah, no, I feel like our East felt more similar than our West, didn't it?
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, all the same teams just kind of just like flip-flop by 1 or 2 positions. Could you name yours just one more time as we wrap up this pod?
Here was my East standings went Boston 1, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York, Miami 6, Pacers 7, Hawks, Raptors, and then the Bulls at 10. But you could definitely convince me to to slide the Bulls up a spot or slide the Magic in there. I definitely feel the vibes there.
For sure, and I think we'll see if Chicago wants to go ahead and blow it up this season. That'll probably make our decision much easier because that's who I was battling with too. With, you know, it's Levine and DeMar at the end of the day. DeMar is getting older, but he's always going to be that mid-range god, and Levine is still in that as we talked about that range of being in this peak. I think he's 27 or 28 years old. So
super high volume, like he can he can go get you a bucket. If he scored 60 points this year, I don't think anybody would be surprised.
0%, but I think that's a good place to end up this podcast right here. We went a little bit over time, but we're just so excited to do this right.
Sorry, folks. Thanks for sticking with us.
I appreciate you. If you're here at the end, please leave a comment. Leave a comment, mustache. Leave a comment, mustache. That's how we'll know that you made it all the way to the end right here. Okay. But we appreciate you guys hella for coming by. You know what I'm saying? My guy TJ always kills it here. The two co-hosts, my Kobe Bryant and the Shaquille O'Neals, will be out here. I'll find a better duo name for next podcast too. So stick around. Thank you guys for watching. Any last words, TJ?
Go Suns.
Go Suns. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have a phenomenal rest of your day.